guys so much for being here. I think it's our 22nd episode of Moore Up North. And it should be a fun night. The legislative session just wrapped up. So we've got the only two legislators that'll still speak to each other to be here tonight, as well as Jeff Feldman to talk about the fact that, well, our state's suing the federal government. How did that go again? Yeah, exactly. So stay tuned. It's going to be fun. For vitamin applause every week. I certainly do. Welcome back to Moore Up North. I'm thrilled tonight to, actually, I'm a little intimidated, frankly. I know, it doesn't happen often, but it's happening right now, so I won't tell him. Jeff Feldman's here, and he has tried many constitutional cases in front of the U.S. District Court, the District of Alaska, the Ninth Circuit, U.S. Court of Appeals, and the United States Supreme Court. Yes, that one. He practices at Feldman, Orlansky, and Sanders, and welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Nice to be here.
You're kind of a big deal.
I don't agree with that, so you better ask me a different question.
Okay. No, I mean, you're the person that every time a question comes up about, and certainly for the last year, this healthcare debate's been going on, and every time I'm talking to a lawmaker, I'm talking to someone, they're like, well, I don't know, you should talk to Feldman. And your name keeps coming up as the go-to guy.
Maybe it's a different Feldman.
Do you think? I don't think so.
It's Tony Feldman. lives down in Whittier.
No, I don't. Well, that's a commute. And so I'm wondering, you know, right now this week, the Attorney General Dan Sullivan, Sean Parnell, the governor, have decided that they're going to take on the feds, and they're going to, you know, be freedom fighters, and get us breaths of American air that aren't under some sort of colonial slavemanship. I can't even remember all of the rhetoric that came along with this, but something about freedom fighters. And so can you talk just about the health care bill in general? What would, they're saying it's unconstitutional. Sean Parnell says he had a personal feeling it was unconstitutional. Is it?
I think it's a stretch. Most people who have looked at this lawsuit, I think, have concluded fairly that it doesn't stand a very good chance of succeeding. It doesn't mean that the state's not entitled to try. As a lawyer, I would never discourage anybody from, you know, exercising their opportunity to try and convince a court of a strange notion. But this case rests on very, very shaky legal ground. And I think even the Attorney General recognizes this. If you read the memo carefully that the Department of Law prepared, you know, they talk an awful lot about a number of the claims, the due process claim, the equal protection claim, the First Amendment claim, all of which they dispose of pretty handily and say there really isn't a basis for them. And the Department of Law concluded that there was one claim, the claim that involves the provision that involves individuals purchasing insurance, and concluded that they thought that there was a potential claim, not a claim that they expressed an opinion is going to win. All the Department of Law concluded was that it's possible that a court could conclude, that was the word, could conclude that it violates the Commerce Clause. The problem with the argument is that ever since World War II, the Supreme Court has been enlarging the reach of the Commerce Clause, and it seems pretty implausible to me to suggest that a law that addresses about 20% of our national economy doesn't substantially affect interstate commerce. So I think they've got a tough case ahead of them. I wouldn't want to handicap this and put my pocketbook on the line.
Well, it's only going to be $5,000.
Well, I don't know where that figure really comes from. I mean, it seems sort of obvious if you look at the memo the Department of Law generated that someone has spent a great deal of time already researching and evaluating the claims. So there's more than $5,000 worth of work just in what the Department of Law did internally. If the Attorney General meant that it was a $5,000 upfront fee to join the lawsuit, maybe that's correct, but it's pretty clear that this is going to be an expensive piece of litigation, and it's not going to end, obviously, with the very first court ruling. Whoever wins or loses, whoever loses presumably is going to appeal to the circuit court, and then that'll be appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. So this is a long slog ahead for somebody.
Well, when I'm looking at this, what the state can sue the federal government over, I mean, we're spending money to go after the EPA on these environmental protection, clauses. We don't want the polar bears to really be protected, or we don't want to look into the belugas, and we're looking into all these things. I mean, it seems to me that it'd be really daunting to see, even if you're as big and as mighty as the state of Alaska, the federal government on the other side. I mean, it seems like there's unlimited resources for them to actually, draw it out.
Well, it's true that the federal government has extensive resources, and the Department of Justice obviously will task a team of lawyers to defend this lawsuit and fight it. Bashing the federal government is a time-honored Alaskan tradition. And this isn't the first, and it certainly won't be the last time that someone seizes on an issue and uses it as a vehicle by which to stand up for supposed state rights. But at the end of the day, the case, like all cases, is going to be determined based on the application of legal precedents and legal principles. And all the unhappiness with the federal government in the world, no matter how our governor feels about the Constitution, it's really not about how we feel about the Constitution. It's what the Constitution says and what the courts say the Constitution says. And at the end of the day, that's all that's going to matter.
Well, I think what really does matter is if people feel like they want to vote for him. And perhaps they'll feel more like they want to vote for him if he feels that this is unconstitutional and it goes along with their rhetoric.
That's a little outside my zone. I don't know what the politics are of bringing a losing lawsuit, so I guess we'll just have to sort of stand back and see.
Well, it's just the principle of it. Going, like you said, it's sort of this long-standing tradition that we have of we don't need the federal government. It's, I think it's sort of part of Joe Vogler's platform, I'm guessing, to really want to kick back against this. How fast will this go through?
It won't move very quickly. I mean, first of all, there's 22, I think, states now that have joined in the litigation. I don't think it's been determined exactly which court and which forum it's going to be heard in, which judge is going to hear it, whether there's going to be more than one suit. There have been some cases that have been filed by states and they've since been dismissed because the complaints were flawed. I mean, there's a fair amount of chaos right now. There's a great deal of good PR to be had in filing a lawsuit or in joining a lawsuit, but that's a cosmetic act, and it's going to take a long time, I think, for the case to get organized, for it then to be briefed and heard by whichever court's going to hear it, and then it's going to take a long time for it to be heard on appeal and move through the system to the next layer. So, if you're asking, is this going to be resolved by Election Day in 2010, the answer is almost certainly not.
Okay, yeah, that's basically what I was asking. But if we win, and I was thinking about this day when I was driving, if we win this law case, this court case, Sean Parnell and Dan Sullivan, so they're suing the federal government. What do we win? Because usually in a lawsuit, I mean, I'm not an attorney, but usually you win something. You win some sort of judgment, or you win something. What we win then is that we don't have to have health care for our citizens. Neat, what a prize. Thanks, and it's easy for him, both of them, both Sean Parnell and Dan Sullivan, have insurance provided to them through the state.
Right.
So they don't lose anything.
Well, the truth is most people in Alaska actually have insurance. About 80% of the people in Alaska have health insurance either through their employers or through the state or through the federal government. So this affects at most about 19 or 20% of people who live here. If the case were successful, I mean, theoretically, the court would strike as unconstitutional this particular provision of the act. But like I said, it seems very unlikely to me that's going to happen. And the more likely consequence is that it's going to go, like all lawsuits go, through the system, and at the end of the day, it's going to be sustained. That's my prediction, such as it is.
Well, I guess I'm just frustrated because it seems that the only people that win are maybe a couple of teabagger votes, and that's really all. And we have to spend a lot of money, because I can't imagine. I talked to someone today who's trying to get a divorce, and they said, no one will even talk to you for under $5,000. I was like, for $5,000 you could sue the feds. Are you crazy? And then he did mention it would be the best money he ever spent. So I guess there's a give and take there.
I mean, there is a silver lining, as it were, to the lawsuit. Not that I endorse the lawsuit, But as is obvious, the President and Congress have taken big hits on the part of the Republicans in particular for having enacted this legislation. And the claim has been made and propagated, across the media, the conservative media, that they have overreached in doing so. And if at the end of the day the lawsuits brought in the courts in fact conclude that Congress did not overreach, did not act unconstitutionally, and that no one's rights are violated, well, that actually would be a good thing in terms of restoring the credibility to the legislation that was enacted.
Right. I just wonder if the Roberts Court is really willing to do that.
I don't want to make any bets on any individual justices. I'm hoping that there are 5 who will reach the right conclusion.
I do as well. All right. Thanks so much for being here, Jeff.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see if he's a prophet and an attorney or just an attorney. We'll be right back with more Up North.